Art handling, what is it? Manual handling, applying that to your artworks, and why we need to know how to do that properly. Minimise the risk of damage to the artwork, but also injury to yourselves. Each artwork and handler is unique, so while there's a sort of set of guidelines to handle artworks, what you might do for one may be very different from the next thing you come across. It depends what the materials it's made of, the size of it. No technique is completely without risk, and I suppose it's good to kind of anticipate where there might be issues and have an idea of how you would react if something does go wrong. For art handling, you are following the same principles of manual handling, and people talk about the 5 Ps, which are plan, so plan how you're going to do it, position yourself with the object, pick your object up, proceed, so travel wherever you need to go with it, and then set it down, place it. Planning is absolutely key. Every single time that you move an artwork, there's a chance of damaging it or that you're going to put stress on it. And again, that will all build up over time. Paper handling, you're trying to hold it by the edges as much as possible. And if you're storing them, like these type of archival boxes can be really good if you've got multiple sheets. Now, this one is a pull-out drawer. You can get ones that kind of have lids that lift up with a little hinge and it lifts open, or just a lid that sets right down on. These are chemically inert. They'll have been buffered. Yeah, and they're breathable. I mean, the plastic box will do, but it's just those, they're called VOCs, volatile organic compounds, that the plastic will off-gas and say you can't see that, but that will have an effect over time. You can interleaf with this acid-free tissue, which is really good. You probably come across that. Now, it's not tissue paper. Again, it's acid-free, and you can have a sheet of that in between each of your artworks. You want to keep damp away from your artworks, and particularly paper. And metals is the other big one. You don't want any kind of condensation, because then you're activating corrosion. You can buy silica gel and you can have it in like a little box, but there's no harm as long as they're not directly in contact with your object. It can be in the box. Just make sure it's not sitting directly on top of your artwork and keep an eye on it. And obviously light is going to affect works on paper, so you know you're wanting something that keeps light out as well. The gold standard now is for paper works, clean and dry hands. No hand cream or anything like that on your hands, and the same for textiles. Because of the paper is so fine, as you know, you want that dexterity and you want the sensitivity. If you're wearing gloves, you just can't feel that. Exceptions that would be photographic emulsions and negatives, and I would use the nitrile gloves just because the acid in your fingers will damage the emulsion. I suppose I already cover it with general handling. You're going to assess it, especially with sculpture, working out where your heavy parts are, whether it could tip or not, because that can be really deceptive, and don't lift it by those fragile points. Another thing to consider is the internal structure, which you might not be able to see, especially with the metal sculpture, because often there'll be corrosion going on, so things could be fragile internally. So just to be aware of that. For some very big sculptures and things outside, you probably will need like a specialist moving company. And that's not necessarily going to be an art handling company. They will do it, but if you don't have access to one of those, it might just be like a removals company. They are probably not going to be aware of how something might be large and heavy but might be really fragile at the same time. So it's up to you to kind of point that out, and don't be afraid to say to them if you see them doing something you think, no, that's going to damage artwork. Say to them, ceramics and glass. As you know, very brittle, vulnerable to chips, scratches and internal cracks, especially those that have a finish on them. Instead of handling the objects individually, get them into a box or a container and make sure that your container is padded. You can use the tissue paper and scrunch it up and make little nests just to surround it. So as long as they're not rattling around inside the box, and just make sure that you don't have too many things in a box. It's better to, I always say, full is half full. So don't pack a box so much that actually the pressure of something on top is going to damage something below. Make sure that you can see everything in your box as well. Too much packing, you could damage something because you can't see. You protect around, but not have lots of packaging on top, just as long as it's stable within your box. Use nitrile gloves for ceramics and glass. That would be my preference. And then if say you've got especially glassworks in a box, put a little sign to say there's glass there, because just because it's transparent, it's so easily overlooked, and then somebody sets something on top of it because they can't physically see it. And textiles, again, we mentioned about just using clean hands with textiles. Some people do like to use the cotton gloves, and it's a bit like with paper, so you want to normally handle those flat because they can be quite fragile, more fragile than you appear, and the threads can be very easily pulled and damaged. Things like carpets and tapestries, you might want to roll them. For something like that, you need to find a tube that has quite a wide diameter because you don't want to crush. The more turns you have, the more the material is compacted, and it can actually crush your material. For a lot of these things say don't put sellotape near anything. This cotton tape is really useful for tying stuff up because it's, again, acid free. You can cut it to length and you can just tie bows. There's just too much risk with tape that it transfers onto your object. You can get Tyvek tape or linen tape, which has like an adhesive side to it, but I find that this cotton tape is just as easy because you can tie it. If you're skilled in knots, go for slip knots. I'm not, but slip knots are easily undone. And the same goes for labels. If you've got a label on something, try and get a label and then tie it on with this stuff, with a bit of cotton thread rather than a sticky label. Packing for storage and transport. Good packing, wherever it's going, it should protect and support your object. If you can't be there for the unpacking, you want your packing to be so easy to understand that anybody could come in and unpack it safely without damaging your artwork. You'll maybe have a crate and you'll have a set of instructions, and it'll literally be like, unscrew this bit first, then take this bit off, then do this, and it's a step by step, and even photographs. Box half full is full. Make sure when you are packing something that you can see in, you can see exactly what's in there, and that you're not having to kind of hook in round, and don't rush it. Money saving tip is if you don't have the budget, you want to use some conservation materials, have those next to your object, and then the rest can be whatever you like. There's a whole list there of things that you should opt for if you have the budget, and then ones that you should avoid. But I would again say it depends very much on how far you're going, how long it's going to be packed. If you know that your object's going to sit there for months and months on end, go for the better stuff. If you know that it's a very quick transport and then it arrives and it's lifted out within a matter of hours, you can probably use other things. On the whole, paper should be flat, or you can vertically if it's in a frame. I think I mentioned most of those things about static electricity. You can put paperworks into mounts. You've probably seen like a watercolor frame that's got like a mount around it. You can put them into those and then put them into boxes. That just adds an extra layer of protection. Photographs, don't put them in plastic. Don't put them in plastic folders because the plastic will off gas and it will affect your photograph. You can get archival paper envelopes. I would definitely go for those, or like manila envelopes, not normal envelopes where you've got the adhesive, because that adhesive can migrate, can become tacky, and it's more difficult if that sort of adheres to a photograph. Rolling works of art on paper, avoid rolling like the plague. Unless you really can't avoid it, but the paper will have a memory, and so when you want to unroll it, it wants to roll back up again. And so to get rid of that, you have to humidify your paper, you have to press it, which really you need a paper conservator to do, and it doesn't always work. So avoid rolling it. Don't roll lithographs, works with glossy finishes, your friable media, and for those of you who do prints and etchings, I think often you get the plate mark, and that can be a really important part of the work that shows that that's what it is, and that can actually be pressed out if you roll. So painting, I would normally say I don't like bubble wrap, but it is handy for frames, or especially if you've got ornate frames, and it's basically like a little hat which will go on. I would keep the bubble wrap that side out. Don't have the flat side in near your frame. Don't have this side because that will mark it. And in this one, actually, they put acid-free tissue. They made an acid-free tissue corner first, and then they put the bubble wrap on, just so the bubble wrap isn't directly on the gilt frame. Then they've used the acid-free tissue to just act as a barrier between the frame and then this cotton tape. The cotton tape is used, so you have your corners, you have your acid-free tissue there, then they put cotton tape over in a cross format, and it's tied at the back. And the reason they have the cotton tape is because then when it's all wrapped in polythene, you don't want your polythene sagging down into the middle and touching your painting. So this cotton tape kind of keeps it away from the surface. And if you have your cotton tape tied too tight, it'll rub against your frame, and especially if you've got a gilt frame, then you end up with big, bands where it's all been worn away. So that would be what would be called a soft wrap, which is normally fine for most kind of works, and especially for framed works. And then when you have your polythene, just make sure that it's sealed, and you can use normal tape or packing tape, as long as it doesn't go anywhere near like your frame or your artwork. If you are sending your artwork and you can't be there, it's a really good idea to send a list of instructions about how you want it displayed, or things that you don't want done. If there's any kind of hanging fixtures that you want used in particular, or if there's a way that you want it packed, send all that with you. Another thing, and this is coming more from a conservation point of view, is really a good idea to take photos and document the condition of it. So, just to recap, preparation is key. Use your common sense, don't overcomplicate things. Do ask for help, don't try and do things yourself, lift things yourself if you think that it's beyond your capabilities, or if you're not sure about materials, do ask for help, and just don't panic.